Hello, sweet friends. It's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to make 4 cards. This is going to be the first in my holiday series. We'll see how many holiday cards I can get done by the time Christmas rolls around. But we are going to start off by making some backgrounds. I have been kind of obsessed with making some alcohol backgrounds lately. So I've got a couple pieces of paper. These are each 5 by 7. The one is a silver sparkle and the other is Yupo. And I thought I had this bright idea to just do both of them at the same time. So I started off by putting some alcohol blending solution all over the bottom, and I'm starting off with some wild plum, and it's a very beautiful, like, hot pink. And it starts out, not a big deal. I'm using my marker spritzer to move those around, and then I pull in some amethyst. Now the amethyst, because I'm trying to work on 2 at one time, isn't spreading the way I'd like it, and I'm actually starting to get a little bit of a hand cramp. So I even try to grab in some of the eggplant, and it's not successful. Not trying to do 2 at one time. If you have like super hand strength, go for it. But I decided I was going to have to only work it on 1 at a time. And that's the beauty of alcohol backgrounds, is that, you can let it sit for a minute or however long you want, and you can bring in some of that alcohol blending solution and you can start working back where you left off. So this is where I've decided I'm just going to work on 1. And I've got this going 4 times as fast, otherwise we'd be here for forever and a day. So all those colors starting from the bottom are wild plum, amethyst, eggplant, and then denim is on top. And I'm really enjoying this color combo. I went to Pinterest, like I've said before. I went to Pinterest, just looked up sunsets, and I got this sort of color combo. It wasn't like it gave me these particular colors. So when I got the colors that I sort of liked, or at least, no names of colors, but just the colors that I liked, I pulled out my swatch book of alcohol inks and then tried to match those as best that I could, or at least, something similar. And I'm noticing that on this silver sparkle paper, it is just very much a very subdued look. I don't get the harsh outlines that I really tend to like a lot. I really like that look where you get some veining, and it doesn't, I don't know why on this paper, I just don't seem to get a bunch of it. So I'll just keep working it and trying to get what I like, kind of trying to get, softest or lightest color working up to the darkest color. And I end up, this is what I have. And I thought, all right, so now I'm going to try and pull in some silver. This is Wow Fab Foil is what it's called. So I just pull out a chunk of that, because at this point I'm thinking, okay, it's pretty dry, but all it keeps doing is pulling up color. And I couldn't get it to stick at all to that silver sparkle paper. And it could just be me, because I've told you in the past, I don't have a lot of luck getting foil to stick to the alcohol inks, but I will show you that I was a little bit more successful on this panel. All right, moving on to this panel, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to keep working until I am happy, working up from wild plum, amethyst, eggplant to denim. And I love the vibrancy on the Yupo paper. I think the silver sparkle is so pretty because it's just like this subdued, and you have this sparkle underneath, and because it's silver, it's also going to subdue it just a little bit because that's a grayish color. And so whatever you put on top of it is going to kind of mute it just a little bit. But on this bright white Yupo paper, it's so pretty. And I'm enjoying all the veining that I'm getting. And I'm just kind of working, just, putting color back in and working it so that I have a good mix of the different colors, and trying to make sure that it's all filled in, because at the end I plan to turn each of these panels into 2. So and this is where I get my 4 cards. So again, just bringing in more color, more alcohol blending solution until I am happy with the outcome. And then I decide to try and do some veining there, or not veining, but the foil on there. And I am pretty successful. I'm also pulling up a decent amount of color, but I don't mind. It's really grasping a lot of those harsh veins, and it's cool. This was a lot more successful than I typically have, and I don't know exactly why, but I ended up being so happy with both of these backgrounds. So yeah. And then I'll show you here close up in a little bit after I let those kind of dry just a little bit more before I decide to cut them down. Now I am showing you this because I did make quite a mess on my my glass mat. And this is why this is so awesome for alcohol inks. I took some 91% isopropyl alcohol. You can do that, or you could do water. And I also got it all over my hands. I don't know if you watched the last time I used alcohol inks. I had said, oh, I never get it on my hands. It's no big deal. But, of course I had to prove myself wrong. And also because my husband has a party planned tonight at our house for all of his, all the people he works with. So of course I have to have alcohol ink all over my hands for tonight. Anyway, moving on, I can spritz some water all over that glass mat and then just use my microfiber cloth to wipe it up. But the isopropyl alcohol works great to get it off your hands, and it also works to get it off the glass mat. But that glass mat is clutch when you're working with alcohol inks. So here are both of the backgrounds. Like I said, I love them both. They're both very, very different, but I really like how they both turned out. And it's interesting how you can use the same colors on something and end up with two completely different things. For my images, I have grabbed the My Favorite Things Sweet Holiday Penguins. This is a Stacy Acula stamp set. And I used these, I think, last Christmas, but I love these little penguins. They're so doggone adorable. So I'll show you some of the coloring. I'm going to use my Arteza Everblend markers, and I'll put all the colors up on the screen that I'm using. But I used my set of 60 along with my 36 gray tones. If you have the set of 20, you may actually have these, or 120, you may actually have some of these grays in there. So it wouldn't necessarily be, you wouldn't have to have the grays, the gray set as well. But I actually am a fan of having both, just simply because if one runs out, so you'll have another, because these markers are not refillable. But I do like this bullet nib. It works well to get into those little crevices. And I'm just doing a 2-color blend mostly. As you notice, I did use that light gray on the outside of the penguin, and I leave most of him white. I just figured we'll just use that paper that's underneath. And by the way, that paper was Express It Cardstock, and I stamped it out using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Both are very alcohol marker friendly, so you won't have to worry about smudges or the ink bleeding into what you're coloring. And I'm going to do the same thing for all the penguins, but I won't show you all of them because, it may get a little redundant for you. Again, just using 2-color blends. And these penguins are so cute. I don't have an actual light source of, like what I'm thinking these little penguins, like where the light is coming from. I'm just putting the color down where I think it would look best. And on this little guy, I don't use a 2-color blend at all. He's just too tiny. All right, I'm going to move on to just using a 1-color blend for the beaks and their little flippers. Are those the flippers? Or are those just the feet? What do we call those? I think their flippers might be their little arms. Anyway, you get the point. Now, I'm not using traditional colors. Obviously, when I did those backgrounds, I did blues and purples and pink. And so for the hats, not all of them, but for this hat and for the rest of where red might normally go, I'm going to go non-traditional, and we're just going to do pink. And so I'm using those 2 pink colors. And at first I was like, oh, because I'm kind of a traditional, Christmas color kind of person, but it's fun to step outside the box. And I'm really liking the color combination that I ended up choosing. So I'll add just a little bit of darkness since this is a rounded image. A candy cane would be rounded. I don't go all the way to the edges. And now I'm going to pull in some blue. So my color combos were basically pink and blue instead of red and green. And I think this ended up looking fairly cute. And it matches with those backgrounds pretty well. So using blue for his little hat, and then for the rest of the presents. And then I'm going to fussy cut all of those little images out. All right, this was a 7-inch, 5x7, so I'm going to cut that in half that way. So I'll get a 3.5-inch by 5-inch panel for both of those. And then I'm going to use some Brutus Monroe Sidewalk cardstock. It's a light gray for my card bases. But I do want to have some snow slopes. So I've also grabbed the My Favorite Things Hit the Slopes die, and I'm going to run this through on some Neenah cardstock through my die cutting machine. And then I'm going to trim those down. So that one will be, that's 2 slopes there. I already had another slope, and then I'm going to trim this one down for my 4th slope. And I end up trimming these down even more later because I want to make sure that that pink shows. If I had put them down like that, they wouldn't show. I put these in my makeshift splatter box, and I'm going to use some Picket Fences Distress Oxide paint. And it looks bright white right here, but for whatever reason, it picked up a pink hue underneath. So it looks white, but then I don't know if it's picking up the alcohol ink. I've never had that happen before, but it ends up that these all dry back to like a pink color, which is fine. But I did want it to look like snow. It just doesn't look like snow. Doing the same thing for the other one. And just making sure that I get a lot of little splatters on there. And then I'm going to set those off to the side to dry. While those are drying, I'm going to stamp my sentiments. So I'm using some Brutus Monroe Raven cardstock. And then I'm going to ink up, or use my magic embossing bag all over that cardstock so that I don't have powder sticking where I don't want it to. I'll pick up the longest sentiment, ink it up with some Versamark ink, stamp that on the bottom, flip over my stamp block, and use the back, and then ink those up with some Versamark ink and stamp those as well. Fit perfectly on that scrap of paper I had. And then I'm going to cover that with some Brutus Monroe Alabaster embossing powder. I'm loving my bigger container now because I had the Giganto container of embossing powder. So that container works really well along with the little bead tray to put the powder all over. So now I'm just heat setting that powder until it is smooth and melted. And then we'll get ready to trim those out. I could have just trimmed them out, but I decided I would grab out the My Favorite Things Essential Slanted Sentiments dies. And then I'm going to just tack those down with some washi tape. So I'll have to run it through a couple times because I only have 3 of the dies and I have 4 sentiments. So once I get those all lined up, and I'm leaving a good amount on the left-hand side because I'm not exactly sure how much of that I want to stick off the side of the card. And so I'll just make sure that I've got plenty of that. Run that through my die cutting machine, and then I'll run it through one more time. And then we're going to start actually assembling. Now these are not completely dry, but I am an impatient crafter. I've also said I'm lazy, and that is fairly true. So I'm sticking that down onto my card bases. And like I said, that's the Brutus Monroe Sidewalk cardstock. And you'll see that there's that bump there at the bottom. And I did actually get a blob of glue down there too. But it'll get covered by the snow slope. And so as you can tell, I've definitely got a bit of hangover. But once that is dry, I will trim off that excess. And so you'll get to see me putting together most of the cards. So, and this is one of the silver sparkle cardstocks. I love how different both of those backgrounds are. I'm not sure which one is my favorite, but I think they're both really, really cool. I should try and do some sort of aurora, what do they call that? Aurora borealis background. Wouldn't that be neat? Ugh. All right, so I thought about popping all this up on foam tape, but instead I thought I'd make this super mailer friendly. So I'm sticking those down with just some liquid glue. This is the Tombow Mono Multi. And then I don't show it on camera, but I do after the camera's turned off, I do take a little bit of my lightest gray marker and put a little bit under each of the little elements that are standing on the snow so it doesn't just look like they're floating. But you won't see that except for in the pictures. So I do apologize for that. And I do some stamping on the inside as well, but I don't show any of that either. Because truth be told, I was FaceTiming with my mom and just the camera stopped and yeah, I just kept going. So I'll get each of the little penguins down and match up a sentiment that goes with each one of them. And those penguins are just so cute. And penguins are fun to color because, you know, they're basically just like gray or black or however you want to color them. I've seen people color them blue and I think that's so adorable too. And then we'll move on to our last one. And I love how the different slopes are. So it's, you know, 4 different cards just using one stamp set and 4 backgrounds. Well, basically 2 backgrounds that I trimmed down. But yes. So I took each of those same images and I stamped those on the inside using some Distress Oxide in the color Picked Raspberry. And let me show you how they each look. So super fun. I've already got a start to my holiday cards. Christmas, we are getting ready because, you know, we're in November, so we got to get started. So if you liked these cards, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I would love to know what you think of the different backgrounds and, you know, what you think of the alcohol inks. So leave all your comments down in the comment section down below, and we will see you very soon in the next video. Thanks for stopping by.